Coming out of the 2020 draft, the Philadelphia Eagles had a quarterback controversy on their hands because in the second round of that draft, they had selected Jalen Hurts, and it was a pick that was shocking at the time. Now, it wasn't surprising because it was Hurts. This was about where he was expected to go, but what was surprising was where he went because Philadelphia, they already had a quarterback at the helm in Carson Wentz, who was a few years removed from being an MVP frontrunner. And it felt like, in spite of all of his flaws, Carson Wentz was the guy that Philadelphia was going to build around. He was their franchise quarterback. And yes, he was limited. Yes, he had his moments where he really struggled. But upon that drafting of Hurts, this was the first time that his job really got called into question. But now they were forced into that position. They were forced into a quarterback controversy from their own pick. Because let's consider the context of Jalen Hurts. You draft a quarterback in the fifth round or something when you've already got an established guy. That's okay because you don't expect him to take over. It would be far more surprising if they did. But Jalen Hurts, based off what we had seen from him in college, he looked pretty good, especially in some moments. He, of course, started out, he was with the Alabama Crimson Tide and finished his career as an Oklahoma Sooner and a finalist for the Heisman Trophy Award. And in that quarterback draft class, you had the likes of Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Tua. And it felt as though those were the big three, undoubtedly, the can't-miss quarterback prospects. But just below them, and not far behind, was Jalen Hurts. So this is someone who may be relative to the stratosphere that Herbert and Burrow would be on. He was maybe more of a project than them, maybe not a guaranteed day one starter, especially considering his status as a second rounder. And if anyone projected him higher, it was like a late first round. But that didn't mean that he wasn't going to start at all. It felt like this is someone who had the potential to be a starting NFL quarterback. And yeah, he might be a project, but there was something there with Jalen Hurts, and that was undeniable. So why then would you draft him when you've already got Wentz on the roster, someone who you would think at the time was your franchise guy? And then we get to that season, Hurts' rookie year. And Carson Wentz really has the worst season that he's ever played in the NFL. And I think part of that is kind of the mentality, right? That they just drafted this guy. What are the plans with you? Are you going to be here long term? That's got to weigh in your mind a little bit. And as this is happening in the background, Philadelphia, they're trying to figure out what to do with Hurts as well. Because they don't really know what to do with him yet. And for a large portion of his rookie year, Hurts would start out at least, the first half of the season, getting maybe a few snaps a game, and they would kind of put him into a Taysom Hill role. They put him out there, he's either scrambling, there's going to be some kind of trickery going on. They kind of use that Taysom Hill model of how to utilize a guy of his talents. But nearing the end of the season, with Wentz playing as bad as he was, the Philadelphia Eagles, they made a decision. They named Jalen Hurts their starter. And the rest of that year, he had some good moments, especially in that game against the Cardinals. And it felt as though they were going to move on from Wentz and pursue Hurts long term to see if there's something there. Because they felt as though maybe they had reached the peak of Carson Wentz. He wasn't going to get any better. So they were maybe captivated by the ceiling of Jalen Hurts. Then in year two, it's kind of a continuation of what we saw from him in year one. There's something solid there, but nothing taking him to that next level. Still definitely some question marks about Hurts. But ever since then, Hurts has catapulted to the top of the NFL quarterback list, or the upper echelon. He's not Patrick Mahomes, but he's up there. In many people's eyes, top 5. In pretty much everyone's eyes, a top 10 quarterback, and for good reason. He has really come into his own as a player, and the counting stats aren't going to be as impressive. They're not going to blow your mind like Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes at times. But Jalen Hurts is an undeniable winner, and he has been everything the Philadelphia Eagles have needed. He has made 2 Super Bowls, and in that first one, they lost, but they went toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Jalen Hurts arguably outplayed Patrick Mahomes. They both played incredibly. Hurts had one fumble that in a game that was so back and forth, that might have really cost the Eagles. But with that, we then saw a side of Hurts that was determined. You kind of had that Mamba mentality similar to Kobe Bryant, in which the job was never finished. He's always got work to do. He's always striving to be better. We saw the leadership of Jalen Hurts begin to take hold. And 2 years later, they would be back in the Super Bowl, and they were back against the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs, they were looking to three-peat, to make history. But standing in their way was a dominant Philadelphia team led by Jalen Hurts. In this team, that season, they started out 2-2. But ever since then, for the remainder of that regular season, as well as the playoffs, Whenever Jalen Hurts both started and finished the game all the way through, they never lost another one after week 4. And in that Super Bowl, the Chiefs finally met their match. They could not three-peat because they had a juggernaut Eagles team in front of them, led by Jalen Hurts, who won the Super Bowl MVP. And 5 years later, after the Eagles made the controversial decision to draft Jalen Hurts, he was a little bit of a project. He wasn't perfect early on, but now he has grown into his role. He has done everything the Eagles have asked him to do. He is a Super Bowl MVP who always seems to perform very, very well in the biggest moments. And for a second round quarterback, you can't ask much more than what you have seen from Jalen Hurts. It's been a great career for him so far, and he's got plenty of years ahead of him. It seemed when he was drafted that Wentz was a franchise guy, but now Jalen Hurts has the keys to the city. He is the quarterback of the future for the franchise. He's the franchise quarterback, and for good reason. He has been very, very good for them. And 5 years later, looks like a great pick. What a career it has been for Jalen Hurts. And among all of his great accomplishments, we cannot forget about him being the leader of the most dominant play in all of football, the brotherly shove.